My name is Fanizadeh, and I'm project coordinator at the VIDC, the Vienna Institute for International Dialogue and Cooperation. I'm responsible for the topic migration and development and have a regional focus on the Middle East. I will send you greetings from my director, Sibylle Raudinger, who is unfortunately, or good for her, on vacation today. The VIDC is a civil society organization based in Vienna. It was founded in 1962 by prominent politicians of Austria like Krems and the so-called Third World, like the Prime Minister of India at that time, Nehru. Since 2015, the VIDC has focused on the political development in Afghanistan, and the background is the enormous increase in the number of Afghan refugees in Austria, which used to be a small community before, and since 2015, it increased to a number of 50,000 people, which is the 10th biggest immigrant group now in Austria. And of course, there is now much more interest on the political issues and the political developments in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, today's event is marked by two 20-year anniversaries. On the one hand, the Banu magazine is celebrating its 20th anniversary, and we congratulate very warmly for this great success. Banu is a magazine for Afghan women and girls and has been published in Austria since 2000 and distributed in Europe and the US. Banu is a Persian Arabic word and means women. But we have Mrs. Olumi, the chief editor of Banu, here on the podium, and she will certainly tell us more about the magazine. On the other hand, 2020 marks the 20th anniversary of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325. The resolution addresses how women and girls are differentially impacted by armed conflict and recognizes the critical role that women could and do play in peace processes. The resolution affirms that peace efforts are more sustainable when women are directly and actively included in the prevention of violent conflict, the relief and recovery efforts, and peace negotiations. This is particularly important in Afghanistan, where women's interests are at risk of not really being heard in the peace negotiations with the Taliban. I think we will hear about this later on. That is why we have chosen the name and the topic of today's talk, No Peace Without Women. In the discussion, we will keep switching back and forth between Afghanistan, Europe, and Austria. This is the case when we work together with important stakeholders of the Afghan diaspora and institutions based in Austria. But my colleague, Dr. Ali Ahmad, will certainly moderate the discussion in a very focused manner. I would like to end by thanking the supporters and cooperation partners of today's conference and panel discussion: the Frauenservice Wien, the Women's Department of the City of Vienna, the Arbeiterkammer Wien, the Chamber of Labor in Vienna, the Austrian Development Corporation, the Afghan Associations Neuer Start and Südwind, and of course I would like to thank Akis, especially Gawhar Musleh and Gauhar for their excellent cooperation. I now hand over to my colleague Ali Ahmad, who is currently working at the Department for Migration and Globalization at the Donau-Universität in Krems. And Dr. Ahmad had also been working for the VIDC since 2015 as a consultant. Ali, the floor is yours, and happy birthday, Banu.
Thank you very much, Michael, for your very kind introduction and opening remarks and providing a context to our today's discussion. First of all, I would like to congratulate Mr. Gausuddin Emir and Nahid Olumi for the 20th anniversary of Banu magazine, and I'm sure this magazine in the last 20 years has had a lot of ups and downs, as Amir and Ms. Olumi described earlier. But the most important thing, I think, is the continuity of this magazine, and especially when it's run by a group of diaspora Afghan women through Europe. And this magazine is not only a platform, as it was mentioned earlier, that it's a symbol of enlightenment, but this is important thing is it's run and organized by a group of Afghan women who live throughout Europe and has built a transnational network of the Afghan diaspora. Not only within Europe, but also with Afghanistan and also in Americas. And I think not only Mr. Mir and Olumi should be proud of this achievement, 20 years of achievement, but every single woman journalist who contributed to the continuity of this magazine for 20 years should be proud and should be thanked and appreciated. I think for me today is also a great pleasure to participate in the anniversary of this magazine, but it's also a great pleasure for me to moderate this discussion under the title of No Women, No Peace, or No Peace Without Women. I think this title has a very strong message behind it. How can you achieve peace in a war-ravaged country like Afghanistan without involving or engaging the better half of your society? So I think this is what our panelists will discuss. They will provide context and content about our today's discussion. And before I briefly introduce our panelists, I would like to tell you that this discussion will last for 1.5 hours, and the first part is dedicated to the statements and of our speakers, and the second part of the discussion will be dedicated to the questions, comments of the audience. So I would kindly ask you to keep your questions, and if you have comments, be brief in your comments, and direct your questions to the person that you want to answer your question. So I have a very comprehensive introduction and biography of every speaker, but because of the time and the constraint of time, so even I had a very short introduction from them, and I even made it shorter. So just to consider the time, I start with Nahid Olumi. Nahid Olumi was born in southern Kandahar province, where she went to school and completed her education in Kabul. For the last 20 years, she's been living in the Netherlands and started collaborating with Banu magazine since 2007. Ms. Olumi is also the author of a book which is called The Afghan Elite Woman, and she continues to work on the subsequent volumes of the book. Welcome, Ms. Olumi.
Thank you very
Great
much.
to have you.
Thank you.
Our other speaker is a very well-known Afghan journalist, Waslat Hasrat-Nazimi, who works for Deutsche Welle, German media. She's a journalist with over 10 years of experience in German media, such as Deutsche Welle, Sediq, Zweites Deutsches Fernsehen, and others. She has a master's degree in media studies from the University of Bonn. Her main focus are Afghanistan and the peace talks, Afghan refugees and women, Islam and racism. She likes to connect with people who have a story to tell, while at the same time creating connections between cultures. And for more details about her biography, I'm sure Deutsche Welle has a complete biography about Hasrat-Nazimi. Welcome to the discussion. Thank you. And our next speaker is Dr. Gawhar Musleh. She is a medical doctor and lives in Austria since 2015. She completed her medical degree in Kabul, and she is the chairwoman of the Akis Women's Department. In cooperation with VIDC, she has developed a concept for gender tandem workshops to strengthen Afghan women in Austria. Thank you, Dr. Musleh. Thanks for being here. And Jessica Hertz is a project coordinator in the unit for the assisted voluntary return and reintegration at the IOM country office for Austria. She is responsible for assisting the voluntary return and reintegration of returnees to Afghanistan. A very important job. Thank you, Jessica, for being on the panel with us today. And Asiye Sil. She's a sociologist, an expert in the Department of Women, Family at Chamber of Labor, Vienna. Her main areas of responsibility is labor market policy for women with a focus on migration. Thank you, Asiye, for being with us. Now, you might have heard or hear on a daily basis about the peace negotiations in Afghanistan. On 29th of February, the US administration signed a peace agreement with the Taliban to end the more than 4 decades of Afghan war. And less than 2 weeks later, it was supposed to, the intra-Afghan negotiations was supposed to start, but it has not started yet. I'm not the expert, but we have people here who will provide us context about this peace negotiation, why this intra-Afghan negotiation has not started, and why Afghanistan has been in war. So my first question, I will start with Waslat Hasrat-Nazimi, since you cover Afghanistan and your focus is also peace negotiations in Afghanistan. So what is the latest, and what is the latest on the peace negotiation, and how Afghan women have been involved, or whether they have been involved in these peace negotiations? And maybe if I add one more, what are the fears and expectations? The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ahmad. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I also want to thank VIDC and Akis for inviting me. I feel very honored to be here today. I want to congratulate the editors and chief editors of Banu magazine, Mr. Gawhar and Olumi. I remember when I first saw the magazine, one of the first editions in the living room of my parents, and I felt very proud that our women here in the diaspora were also able to achieve such a thing. But let me come to your question, Dr. Ahmad. I will start by giving a brief overview of the Afghan peace process, even though I'm pretty sure that most of us already know a lot about the peace process. But as we all also know, it's also not a new development. The Afghan peace process has started, or the efforts to start a peace process has started over 10 years ago. So it has been going on for over a decade. It's back in 2001, when the ousted Taliban government, they were just ousted, and the USA and other international community, and also the Afghan government tried to form a new government and a new system in Afghanistan. The Taliban were ready to hold negotiations with the USA, but the current or the former government back then, the Bush government, they declined and they rejected. They also said that they are not going to talk to terrorists. Now, 20 years later, things are looking quite different. We all know that now the USA is ready to talk to terrorists, and not only that, they are also ready to, again, describe the Taliban as one of their partners to now fight a common enemy, that is the IS, or the so-called Islamic State. After a lot of back and forth, there had been talks in other countries, in Russia and in Doha, and also other countries. We know that on February 29th this year, as Dr. Ahmad has mentioned, the US and the Taliban met in Doha, and they signed an agreement which stipulates that the Afghan ground should not be used as a safe haven anymore for terrorists, and that the violence against US soldiers and US troops should end immediately. It also regulates a 14-month plan for the US to reduce troops and to withdraw all of their troops from the country. But what does this mean for Afghans? I was also there in Doha when the Taliban and the USA, they signed the agreement. The Afghan government itself, they were not present. They were in Doha, one of their delegations, but they were not invited to the signing agreement. And there were also no Afghan women besides me. I was the only Afghan woman at this event. We know that the peace talks so far has said, the peace agreement in Doha has not really talked about what will happen to Afghans and what will happen to Afghan women. This was not any of the discussions and no topic of discussion in those peace talks. It only set the preconditions for intra-Afghan talks, which we hope will start very soon. And one of those conditions was the release of 5,000 Taliban prisoners. This was months ago. We still have not achieved this milestone. We still don't know that there are still a few dozens of prisoners left. Now France and also Australia have said that they don't want those prisoners to be released because they have killed French and also Australian soldiers. And we also know that the Afghan government is also trying to win time because they're also waiting for the US elections. And one of their hopes is that they will, a new US government will bring a change, and also a change to the withdrawal plans of the US. The main topic today is women, and we know that women have the most to lose during these peace talks, because we all remember what happened from 1996 to 2001. And we all know the suffering Afghan women went through. We also know the regulations and the rules that even killed Afghan women. The Taliban have already said that they want to give women rights. They don't want to go back to those years from 1996 to 2001. But what does this actually mean? They have never said what this actually means. They always say women will get rights, the rights that Islam gives them anyway. When I was in Doha, I asked the Taliban, but what does it really mean? Do you know that Islam in Saudi Arabia has a different meaning and is interpreted differently from what women are living in Indonesia, for example? So where is the line? Which school of thought will you follow? This was only replied with silence. I never got an answer to that. I also asked the Taliban in Doha where the women are, where their own women are, because not only do they not give rights to Afghan women from the women that are in Afghanistan and the government, but they also don't bring their own women and they don't give them a voice. Since the talks about the talks began, we have seen women, and I think the first time that we saw women, even though they were foreign women, were in Moscow, in Russia, when one of the first talks about the talks began. Afghan opposition leaders were in Russia, and we saw that foreign journalists were suddenly standing next to Taliban. Those images, they went through the whole world, over the whole world. We could see those images. It was, for me personally, it was very fascinating to see those Taliban that we all think about as monsters suddenly standing to these women. And when I met them myself, it was also I think it was an experience of a lifetime for me to see them in front of my eyes and to speak to them. And I think this will also happen when the Afghan government, which has 5 women in their own delegation for the peace talks, this scenario will probably happen again. We know that we have 5 women in the Afghan delegation for the peace talks, but who are these women? These women are elite women, they're high-profile women, they're politicians that have been in Afghan politics for a very long time. But what about Afghan women who live in the rural parts of the country? What about those women? What about their wishes? do they actually represent the women that live in villages, that live in parts of the country that are not big cities? I think this is also very important. And I also want to say that these women are not young women. I think the expectations of the women who are in this delegation and the women that have been in politics is very different from the young women, the women that have been living war since they were born. This is also, I think, and also another very important point. We also know that there are women who have lost sons on both sides of the war. It's not just that they are Afghan women who are against the Taliban. There are also women who have sons who have fought for the Taliban and who have died. And at the same time, they have sons who have fought for the Afghan security forces and they have died. What do those women want? And I think I don't want to answer those questions because you asked me what are the expectations and what are the fears. But I think as a woman who has lived almost her whole life, who was born in Kabul but has come here as a child, I think I'm not really able to answer those questions. And I don't want to. I can't represent Afghan women who live in the country and their lifestyle is completely different from what I'm going through. Of course, I can try to give them a voice, and that is what I'm doing with my work, but I don't want to speak for them.
Thank you very much. I think you raised a lot of important, points, and I certainly will ask a couple of them in the second round of the questions. I go to Ms. Olumi, Nahid Olumi. Maybe could you tell us what Banu has done and how Banu could unite the women in the diaspora and what the women in the diaspora could contribute in peace process?
I prepared some question about your question, but I wanted first to read this and after I take the question. It's okay?
You have 7 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
Please.
I try to. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I hope we have a good moment together. I'm Nahid Olumi, Editor-in-Chief of Banu magazine, publisher of Afghan Women's Thought in Europe. Happy 20th anniversary of UN Resolution 3025, which calls for the equal participation of women around the world in peace negotiation and reconstruction. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have the panel discussion on no peace without women. Women have paved the way for today's conference to empower them and restore peace. Certainly, it's difficult to think of women's empowerment without peace. What is empowerment? Why women empowerment is important? These are the questions I have addressed here. There is a different definition for empowerment, such as to empower of empowerment is comprehensive, a growing process through which women who do not have equal and fair share of their rights for any reason have the opportunity to demonstrate their ability and competence. In Afghanistan, women empowerment is underrepresented. Therefore, many people do not have insight and deep knowledge of how to participate in the economic and social activities. Unfortunately, the majority of Afghan women, as all of the society, are not prepared for equal work opportunity. Therefore, it is necessary for women to be aware of their inner need and desire to strengthen the courage of achieving their goals within them and equip themselves with the necessary tools to see their wish and desire becoming realities. Ladies and gentlemen, in this section, I would like to talk about Banu magazine, the publisher of Afghan women's thought in Europe. First and foremost, I would like to thank Mr. Ghawsuddin Amir, the founder of Banu magazine. He's 20 years ago, with a few facility and a few limits, resource that founded the magazine in Austria. Today we are celebrated at 20th anniversary. Also, I would like to thank all the Banu colleagues of the magazine whose effort of motivation have made the magazine to prosperous or successful today that is on a par to foreign magazines. During this 20 years, dozens of trained or untrained women worked for the magazine, but those we were more capably remained with the head. I will return to my first point. The capability and the competence are the foundation of the society, and in a situation they makes it stronger and stronger. Why today our magazine is only in Dari and Pashto? Because we cannot afford to publish this magazine in another most spoken language. I started work in Banu magazine 2007, but with determination and hard work, I was promoted to be the editor-in-chief of this print media 3 years ago. How did I encourage women to think, write, work with this print media? By motivating others, appreciating their work, listening to each other, opinion, and encouraging colleagues to have confidence in their talent and abilities. Treating everyone equally. Most important, planning and organizing in this timely manner. As a result, today we capable and competent Afghan women in Europe and in other countries. We have been able to increase the number of pages of the magazine for 25 to 30 pages to 72, from 5 collaborators to 60, and from 20 subscribers to hundreds. Now that is the 55th issue of the magazine is in the 20th year. Our colleagues from Austria, the Netherlands, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Belgium, the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, Australia, Afghanistan, and the rest of the country have been able to help the magazines board, print, and packed in Austria and delivered to subscribers' home across the world. Therefore, the existence of a capable woman, both in culture and organizational work, as well political participation, economic process, and the process of peace negotiation is concerned, thought out, necessary, and essential required to needs, just as the degree of progress of the society depends on the degree of freedom, equal rights, and the share of women in society. Without women's exist, peace talk are neither important nor will they produce the desired outcome. I am cultural and social activist who always defends Afghan women's rights. I do not believe in peace behind closed doors and the absence of women, nor is such peace possible. All institutions that are working to improve the capacity of Afghan women are urged to work hard, because empowering women is as important as peace. Thank you for your attention. Maybe
thank you.
You get it all of your questions.
Thank you. I think you raised a couple of important points, like empowerment of women, and I'm sure Asiye will talk about it later in her presentation. And also, as you rightly said, that without women, peace will not bring desired outcome, and peace behind doors is absolutely not acceptable. So I'll ask you later about the second part, but you know, in the 90s, Life was not easy neither for men nor for women. I finished my school in '98 and went to a university. But there was a little girl in Makroyan, in eastern part of Kabul. She could not go to school because she was not allowed. And what she was doing, she was going to underground school with her books and pens and papers in a plastic bag, so the Taliban don't see it, and if the Taliban saw it, they would stop her and they would find out that she's going to school. So she was carrying these books in a plastic bag. She did not stop as the Taliban collapsed. She went to school and she went on to graduate from medical university, and she is Dr. Gawhar. She's, I think, she's, you know, a brave woman, a resilient woman. I want to ask you, Gawhar Jan, what does peace with the Taliban mean for you and your family? You know, you grew up in that situation, and is there any solution other than talking with the Taliban to end this war? Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ali, for the introduction and also for all the informations that you have given about me. So I have plenty of memories about living under the Taliban's regime. So unfortunately, none of them are the happy memories, the nice memories, and all of them are very tragic. But I want to share some first, and then at the end, you will all understand what is my opinion on the peace and negotiations with the Taliban. I was a 6-year-old girl in the first year of primary school when Taliban took over the power in Afghanistan. The night my father came and he said, there is a war, we should hide, maybe it gets worse or severe, we should be prepared to hide ourselves in the basement. We didn't know why. And the next morning, when we woke up, my father told the Taliban have came to Kabul and we are not allowed to go to school anymore. And I didn't know who are Taliban. And it was really hard for us that we didn't understand, the 6-year-old girl didn't understand why she is not allowed to go to school anymore when she's in the first year. So that is the first and the worst memory of mine. And I never will forget this. It's just like something happened to me yesterday. And many more like this. I remember everything that, like, after that, my family started to hide all the technology stuff, like electric things, even the photo albums, that if Taliban search the houses and they find it, they will beat or kill or anything could happen. That's also a part. And the worst one was when my mother, the only females that, you know, the females that were allowed to work on Taliban's regime were the doctors, the medical doctors. And my mom was one of those. She came home one day, she was working in Indira Gandhi Child Hospital. She came home cryingly. And it was really, we didn't know why she's crying. And she was telling the story that she was going from one part of the hospital to another part of the hospital because of some emergency work. And she didn't get her burqa, chadari, with her, though she had a scarf. But one Talib saw her, that why her face is not covered, they started beating my mom. That is also a memory that I have from the Taliban's time and regime in Afghanistan. Also, as you mentioned, I will not go on that part. The way that we went to school, the underground schools, that was the most important concern of my parents, our education. Me and my other sisters, we were left behind. There wasn't any school, any place, though my father was trying to teach us things at home. The books, he had got all the books, school books for us, but still it wasn't enough. So my mom got information that the teachers that are at home, they have opened the school for women, for the girls, young girls, and it's a hidden school. So I went there, me and my sister, for a couple of months. We were going there. The teachers were telling us, please don't bring your books in a school bag, because the Taliban were, the people will see and they will report, or maybe the Taliban themselves find out about that we are running an underground school. Please come alone, not in a group. Each should come alone by herself. So also this is a part. And our education was the biggest concern, as I mentioned. So my parents decided that we should move to some countries that we can continue. And the most easy and the easiest way was going to Pakistan. So we migrated to Pakistan. And after that, we started going to school there, and we continued until the Taliban left the country, and we came back and started there. Finally, we finished the education there and the university as well. But also, I remember the day we went to, for going to Pakistan, we needed to have passport. We went to governmental offices to take the identity card, tazkira. When we went, there was a Talib sitting behind a table. My elder sister, she was 14 years old, and she had to wear burqa also. I had a small scarf. So for us, the person was like estimating our ages. He was writing our ages by his own estimation on the tazkira. And he was like, can you open your face, show me your face? My sister uncovered her face, and he was like telling, yeah, she's 16. You were 8, and your other sister is 10. We weren't. And I think that is the reason why most in Europe, when Afghans came, all people, the refugees, the documentations are wrong, their date of births are wrong. That could be a reason. For those who don't know and laugh, that's why all documents, Afghan documents, are wrong. So I think after all these stories that I said, I explained, and I share with you, that shows my opinion and my family's opinion about the peace, about the negotiations with Taliban. We never believe the Taliban are the same. They never change, and they will never change too. So we are totally opposite of that. Thank you. I think my time is over.
No, thank you very much for telling us your story. And you said Taliban have not changed. I think we are living in a very special circumstances. I mean, during this pandemic, we had the homeschooling. And we were so much, I mean, as a parent, we were so much in trouble of, being a good parent to do good homeschooling. But you see the homeschooling under the Taliban, even that you can compare the homeschooling under the Taliban or in a pandemic. So I think we should not take that for granted. I think, there are situations that is even worse, and it's the matter of life and death. Now, I would like to ask Jessica Hertz. IOM is a very important international organization throughout the world and in Austria as well. And IOM is doing a lot of work with all migrant groups, but of course Afghans are also one of the largest migrant groups in Austria. Maybe Jessica, if you could tell us about IOM activities in the context of Afghanistan, and are there special activities, initiatives for Afghan women and in Austria? Floor is yours. And of course, you can also explain, if you want, the UN Resolution 1325, if that's okay. Floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. So thanks to the organizers also. I'm very happy to be here today on behalf of the International Organization for Migration. Actually, IOM is the world's leading international organization in the field of migration and is committed to the principle of humane, and orderly migration, that this benefits migrants and the society. So IOM is part of the UN system and globally has 173 member states and more than 40,000 employees in 430 offices worldwide. So IOM supports migrants all over the world, amongst others with their voluntary return and reintegration in their country of origin. So maybe I should explain what voluntariness, or how voluntariness is defined in the context of assisted voluntary return and reintegration. Voluntariness is assumed to exist if two conditions apply. The first condition is the freedom of choice, which is defined as the absence of physical and psychological pressure to enroll in an assisted voluntary return and reintegration program. And the second component is an informed decision, which requires the availability of timely, unbiased, and reliable information upon which to base the decision. So here in Austria, here in Vienna, actually we have two IOM offices. We have one regional office, which is responsible for Southeastern Europe, for Eastern Europe and Central Asia. And then we have another IOM office, which is the country office for Austria, which basically deals with national agendas. And that's where I am employed, and actually I work for the unit for assisted voluntary return and reintegration. And we have a very specific, Afghanistan-specific program, which is called the Restart 3 project. And it began in the beginning of this year, so it began in the beginning of 2020. And it's a 3 years long project. And it runs until the end of 2022. The project is co-funded by the Austrian Ministry of Interior and the European Union. And the project aims to support the voluntary return of migrants who live in Austria and want to return to their country of origin, namely Afghanistan. And actually, we do not only support the voluntary returnees to Afghanistan, but we also support them in their reintegration in the country. So what does reintegration mean? Reintegration, IOM supports the voluntary returnees in their reintegration. This means to re-establish their economic, financial, and psychosocial relationship in the country of origin. And this by simultaneously reaching out to their local communities. In terms of the financial support, within the Restart 3 project, we offer our project beneficiaries, right after their return to Afghanistan, a cash assistance of 500 euros. And the returnees also have the possibility to obtain up to 2,800 euros of in-kind assistance for setting up a small business in the countries or for using it for education purposes. These payments, however, serve as a first start aid in the country. Both assistances are meant as initial support to start earning their living. But there's not only the financial support, as I said, there's many other kinds of supports. For example, IOM offers counseling, offers support in establishing a business plan, and many more. Since the beginning of this year, within the Restart 3 project, we have in total 33 project participants, of which 2 are female. IOM, of course, has also offices in Afghanistan. So we have a main office in Kabul, and we have 7 other sub-offices in the country. And the mission, the IOM mission in Afghanistan, is one of the biggest worldwide. Between IOM Austria and IOM Afghanistan, since 2012, there has been projects implemented together. In the context of assisted voluntary return and reintegration to Afghanistan, women are generally underrepresented. This may also be connected to the fact that far fewer asylum requests are made by Afghan women here in Austria. So in the last 3 years project, this was the project before the Restart 3 project, it was the Restart 2 project, out of 500 project participants, 33 were female. And in our current project, as I said before, there are 2 women who registered for their voluntary return. For IOM Austria and for IOM generally, it is particularly important to offer women a specific support within our projects and to respond to their special needs. Therefore, immediately after the project registration of a female participants, we hold pre-departure information sessions with them in order to provide them with detailed information on the return and their reintegration in the country. At the same time, by personally talking to them, we can respond to their individual situation and to their needs. If women still require additional support and show vulnerabilities, there is the possibility of covering them with a vulnerability fund, for example, for medication, for shelter, and for many more. Women in vulnerable situations undergo a very comprehensive assessment within IOM before returning to Afghanistan. And of course, also the perspectives and employment opportunities in the return country in Afghanistan are evaluated and discussed during pre-departure information sessions and also during counseling sessions, so that women can also get a general idea of their professional possibilities in the country of return. Business models of former voluntary returnees from Austria to Afghanistan were, for example, a private school, a grocery store, a crockery store, or a beauty salon. In all of IOM's activities, but also in IOM Afghanistan's activities, gender plays a very central role. And it is particularly worth to highlight IOM Afghanistan Protection Program, which includes specific activities to support single female undocumented Afghan women who return from Iran and Pakistan. This includes the provision of air transportation to their province of final destination, as travel by bus for single women has been identified as exposing them to high protection risks. Additionally, once the women reach their province of final destination, they are linked up with IOM's network of protection caseworkers who work with them to develop a case management plan to ensure they are given the greatest opportunities possible to reintegrate in the community in the most successful and protection-sensitive way possible.
1 minute.
So I think this is all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So you just finished on time.
Perfect.
Thank you. IOM is doing some great work, and I'm sure we'll have some discussion about it. Our next speaker is Asiye. She will speak in German. So, and later on, if you have questions, so you can raise in German or in English. So she will understand. But I will raise my questions in English. She will answer in German. Asiye, you work for the Vienna Arbeiterkammer, like labor of Chamber of Labor, exactly. So, what are your activities in the context of migration? Or what do you do? What Arbeiterkammer do specifically with women with migration background? Please.
Ja, bevor ich auf diese Frage eingehe, möchte ich doch ganz kurz ein Statement abhalten. Wie schon angekündigt, werde ich in deutscher Sprache reden. Ich versuche langsam zu reden, damit mich auch alle verstehen. Ja, vielen Dank, dass ich hier für die Arbeiterkammer zu Ihnen sprechen darf und mit Ihnen vor allem sprechen darf. Die AK, viele von Ihnen kennen wahrscheinlich die Arbeiterkammer, aber setzt sich seit 100 Jahren. Auch wir feiern dieses Jahr wie Banu ein Jubiläum, seit 100 Jahren für die soziale Gerechtigkeit ein, für sozialen Frieden, für die Rechte von Arbeitnehmerinnen und Arbeitnehmern. Und umso mehr ist es, ja, freue ich mich, dass ich da bin, dass die Arbeiterkammer auch diese Initiative und diese Veranstaltung mit unterstützt, weil ich denke, da sind wir uns einig, nur durch gemeinsames Handeln und Solidarisierung können wir Ungleichheiten, Ungerechtigkeiten und jegliche Formen von Konflikten in der Gesellschaft beseitigen. Ja, auf dem Weg möchte ich natürlich der Zeitschrift Banu beziehungsweise auch den Redakteurinnen und den Mitwirkenden herzlichst gratulieren. Ich glaube, wir brauchen das Engagement der Frauen, der Fraueninitiativen und der Fraueneinrichtungen, eben wie ich auch schon ausgeführt habe, um jede Form von Unterdrückung irgendwie aufzuzeigen und dann dagegen zu kämpfen. In Afghanistan, aber auch in Österreich, weil auch hier sind leider nicht alle Ungleichheiten beseitigt. Auf das werde ich jetzt noch in meinem Statement eingehen. Sie haben es auch schon angeführt, ich schließe nicht da an, aber Machtausübung, Unterdrückung und Kriege machen Gesellschaften, Menschen und Länder kaputt. Und leider ist es eben in Kriegssituationen so, dass sie sich immer auch gegen die Rechte der Frauen quasi richten. Und Sie haben es sehr schön ausgeführt, die Leidtragenden sind nur allzu oft auch die Frauen, wenn eben die Söhne sterben oder wenn Familienmitglieder verletzt werden und so weiter. Fest steht, dass Frauen anders handeln und agieren als Männer. Frauen werden so erzogen bzw. sind so sozialisiert, dass sie auf das Gemeinwohl ihrer Kinder, ihrer Familien und auch ihrer Gemeinden und der gesamten Gesellschaft schauen. Leider werden Frauen oft nicht gehört, sondern ignoriert, ja noch mehr, sie werden unterdrückt und ausgeschlossen. Würden Frauen von Friedensverhandlungen nicht ausgeschlossen werden, würde die Welt wahrscheinlich anders aussehen. Ich möchte in meiner Rolle als AK-Referentin auch auf das Thema Migration und Integration eingehen und habe gestern so überlegt, was das so der Einsatz für das Engagement von Frieden mit der Migration zu tun hat. Und ich sehe da viele Parallelen. der Einsatz und das Engagement von Frauen für Frieden ist sehr, sehr ähnlich wie der Einsatz der Frauen für Integration. Ich bin selbst migriert und seit über 40 Jahren in Österreich. Und wenn ich jetzt einen Vergleich mache mit dem Gastarbeiterinnen-System der 1960er Jahre, dann sehe ich große Parallelen. Nämlich, dass nicht auf die Frauen geschaut wurde, ja, dass Frauen ignoriert wurden, dass Frauen leider nicht unterstützt wurden, in den Arbeitsmarkt zu kommen oder eben eine gute Bildung zu bekommen. Und sie wurden auch nicht erkannt, dass sie ganz, ganz wichtige und meines Erachtens die wichtigsten Integrationsakteurinnen sind. Ja? Weil für die Erziehung der Kinder sind sie oder diese Arbeit machen sie überwiegend, aber auch in der eigenen Community und Gesellschaft spielen sie eine ganz wichtige Rolle. Was damit auch passiert ist, dass eben viele, also dass Frauen schon damals, und das zieht sich leider auch durch, von vielen partizipativen Prozessen auch ausgeschlossen wurden. Und ich rede hier von struktureller Diskriminierung. Die Situation von zugewanderten Frauen ist noch komplexer als die der zugewanderten Männer. Wir wissen, dass auch in Österreich sind Frauen nicht komplett gleichgestellt und gleichberechtigt. Ja? Also neben dieser generell bestehenden, sage ich jetzt, gesellschaftlichen Benachteiligung von Frauen, müssen zugewanderte Frauen oft viele Formen von Diskriminierung erleben. Sie sind wegen sichtbaren Merkmalen, wie das Aussehen, bei den Frauen sehr, sehr oft auch aus religiösen Gründen oder wenn sie eben beispielsweise ein Kopftuch tragen. Frauen werden oft auch öffentlich attackiert. Also das kommt jetzt nicht von mir, das kommt aus ganz aktuellen Studien. Das heißt, auch hier haben es Frauen viel, viel schwieriger quasi, ihr Leben selber zu gestalten. Leider ist es so, dass neben der Diskriminierung es ganz, ganz viele Vorurteile gibt gegenüber Frauen mit Migrationshintergrund. Weil wenn von ihnen gesprochen wird, dann wird oft gesagt, sie sind nicht gebildet und wir sehen, ja, auch in der afghanischen Community, es gibt wohl die sehr, sehr gut qualifizierten Frauen, ja, das heißt, die Qualifikationen der Frauen werden nicht gesehen. Sehr, sehr oft wird gesagt, ja, sie sind arm und sie werden unterdrückt von ihren Männern und so weiter. Also es gibt so ein einseitiges Bild, ja, von den Frauen, diese Hilfsbedürftigen. Und diese Vorurteile gibt es leider in Österreich gegenüber bestimmten Community-Frauengruppen, aber eben auch leider ganz stark auch gegenüber den afghanischen Frauen. Und leider ist es so wie in der Einbeziehung von Frauen in Friedensprozessen so, dass oft über die Frauen gesprochen wird und ganz selten mit ihnen gesprochen wird. Und also ich bin schon sehr, sehr lange in diesem Migrationsbereich beschäftigt. Was ich jetzt in den letzten 2 Jahrzehnten wirklich sehr gut beobachten konnte, ist, dass die Frauen sehr gerne, ja, von politischen, auch populistischen Parteien, dass sie dazu benutzt werden, um Politik zu machen. Ja, und das hat sich leider ganz stark auch seit 1914, 15 leider auch bestärkt. Diese Vorurteile beziehungsweise eben, dass Frauen für eigene also für eigene Politik auch genutzt werden. Ja, es hat sich natürlich auf internationaler Ebene in der EU und selbstverständlich auch in Österreich schon viel getan. dass Frauen eben ihr Leben selbst bestimmen können, selbst entscheiden können, wen sie heiraten und ob sie Kinder bekommen wollen. Wir sind nicht am Ende, auch in Österreich und in Europa, nicht am Ende des Emanzipationsprozesses angelangt. Ja. Vielleicht durch Corona und die Beschäftigung von Frauen in den sogenannten systemrelevanten Berufen, eben Hotellerie, Gastgewerbe, Handel, Pflege, Gesundheit, haben Sie es auch medial mitbekommen. Frauen sind oft in diesen Berufen beschäftigt, wo sie weniger bezahlt bekommen, wo sie schlechtere Arbeitsbedingungen haben, wo sie schlechte Arbeitszeiten haben, wo sie nicht wissen, was sie mit den Kindern machen sollen. Ja? Sie verdienen auch, obwohl sie die gleichen Qualifikationen haben, weniger als die Männer, als die männlichen Kollegen. Das ist auch in Österreich Realität. Was wir sehen, ist, dass die Frauen weniger in Aufsichtsräten sind, weniger in Führungspositionen und leider auch viel zu wenig in der Politik. Und gerade da ist es wichtig, dass die Frauen in die Politik kommen, weil dort werden Entscheidungen getroffen, auch wenn es um Frieden geht. Ja, wir haben es gehört, es gibt Länder natürlich, wo es ganz, ganz extrem ist, ganz schlimm ist, wo vor allem Töchter auch gar nicht in die Schule gehen können, geschweige denn arbeiten dürfen. Ja, wer kann das besser als Sie oder wir, die es auch am eigenen Leib erlebt haben, das auch nach außen zu tragen? Und ich denke, Migration ist wahnsinnig schwierig, vor allem in den ersten Jahren, ja, da Fuß zu fassen, Arbeit zu finden, eine Ausbildung zu machen. Aber sie bietet den Frauen auch eine Chance, ihr Leben selbst zu gestalten und damit auch sich für die Frieden und Frauen- und auch Kinderrechte einzusetzen. Und in dem Rahmen brauche ich es eigentlich auch gar nicht auszuführen, aber ich habe jetzt an die Nobelpreisträgerin Malala Yousafzai oder auch Nadia Murad gedacht, die sich wirklich auch geopfert haben, sich auch unnachgiebig für eben Kinderrechte und für die Frauenrechte eingesetzt haben. Frieden kann es nur geben, wenn es die Frauenrechte gibt. Ohne Frauenrechte gibt es auch keinen Frieden. Ich danke Ihnen vielmals. Ich möchte mich wirklich bei allen bedanken, die sich für Frieden einsetzen, für den ganzen Frauen, aber auch den Männern, weil die Solidarität der Männer ist dringend erforderlich in den ganzen Fraueneinrichtungen, aber auch von Frauen, die es tun, aber immer leider unsichtbar bleiben. Danke.
Thank you very much. I think, yes, the solidarity, to have the solidarity from all segments of the society is very crucial for women. I was supposed to translate roughly, but I think I just lost somewhere. And it also takes a lot of time just but the video will be online on the VIDC Facebook, so you can watch it again. I think we have 25 minutes more. Before I ask my question, I just tell you that you can raise your hands, you can ask questions, and also, if you want, you can make a very brief comment if you want. So feel free. But my question to Waslat Jan, I think you mentioned a lot of points, but one point I want to raise with you is what you mentioned about some of the conditions of the peace agreement with the Taliban, and one of those conditions is to cut that the Taliban must cut the ties with Al-Qaeda and with international or transnational terror groups. And the second point you mentioned was, having 5 women, elite women, in the delegation. So how Taliban have the Taliban abide by their promises that they will cut their ties. We have the report from the UN Security Council recently that there are, I think, 6,000 to 6,000 transnational terror groups operating alongside the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. Of course, they have a big number. So, first, what do you say about that? Have they kept their promise to cut ties with Al-Qaeda and other transnational terror groups? And the second about so who should represent the women, overall women in this peace delegation? I mean, these are 5 elite women, as you said, very high-profile women. So who should represent the general public? Please.
Okay. I will keep my first answer very short because I think you already answered it. The UN studies has said that the Taliban have not cut their ties and they still support Al-Qaeda and other fighters, especially. We also know that there are thousands of foreign fighters fighting in Afghanistan, and Taliban also facilitate that. So we have fighters from, we have Chechen fighters, we have Tajik and Uzbeki fighters, and we know that they still operate in Afghanistan. So this is the first answer. And the second, yes, I did say that, in my opinion, I think, or we should at least discuss, how do these high-profile women who also have big businesses in Afghanistan, who are in positions of power, how can they actually represent Afghan women, women from villages? And I think they're not able to. So in my opinion, if there was some form of a platform for Afghan women in living in villages, then this would also change the narrative. Because right now we have this narrative, the women in the villages, the Afghan women in the villages, they have nothing to say, they just stay at home, they have nothing to do. But this is not true. They are actually also working in their communities. They are, as you also mentioned, Asiye, that they are educating their children. So they play a big role, and they have always played a big role in Afghanistan. We have this, the stigma that we have about Afghan women, that they are uneducated, they're living backwards, and they don't have a modern thinking. But this is actually not true. And I also wanted to come to your point, because if you want, I can switch to German. Sie haben ja auch über die Gastarbeiterbewegung gesprochen. Ja. Und das stimmt, dass es Parallelen gibt. Aber man muss auch dazu sagen, dass die Gastarbeiter erstens, die wurden hergeholt, sie wurden gebeten zu kommen. Afghanen hat niemand gebeten zu kommen. Und afghanische Frauen, die vor allem in den 90ern und davor gekommen sind, waren sehr gebildet. Ja. Das waren Frauen, die waren Elite von der Elite, die waren gebildet, die sind zur Uni gegangen. Von daher kann man das nicht ganz vergleichen. Und das ist auch zum Teil bis vor kurzem so gewesen. So until 2016 or 2015, most women who came to Europe were very educated. This changed afterwards, but still we know that we can't really compare Afghanistan to other countries, because in Afghanistan, women were able to vote even before you were able to vote in Switzerland. So women always had a specific position in society, even in the rural parts of Afghanistan. And we shouldn't forget this. So we have this narrative about Afghan women, and we should also not reproduce this narrative, because it's actually just not true. We should go back to what Afghan women are doing. You mentioned Malala Yousafzai. She's named after the Afghan Malala, who is a national hero in Afghanistan. And we have many Malalas in Afghanistan. We don't need the Pakistani Malala.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any question from the audience? Any comment, question? Yes, we have 2 questions. Yes, please. You ask your question and then I will come to you.
با اجازه شما من با فارسی صحبت میکنم. اول پیشنهاد میکنم برای کمیسیون تدارک اگر بهتر میشد که چنین کنفرانسایی که واقعا ارزنده است به زبان فارسی یا دری ترجمه میشد و اما از این کنفرانس استفاده بسیار موثر میکردن. پیشنهادم است در برنامه بعدی چنین کنفرانس ما میخواهیم به زبان خود. من مطمئن هستم که 80% در اینجا انگلیسی نمیفهمم و من که انگلیسی میفهمم بسیار کم یا شاید به اندازه بفهمم که درست من صحبت نفهمیده باشم. ولی در مجموع من صحبتایی که آلمانی صحبت کردن از دوستای ما تشکر میکنم. در مورد کمبودهای زنان و نبود حقوق برابر در سراسر جهان با زنان مشکلات وجود داره که به مثال در مورد زنان اتریش مسائل را مطرح کردن که در اروپا هم حقوق مساوی برابر با مردا وجود نداره، در قسمت کار مساوی، حقوق مساوی. و در اینجا مشکل ما در اینجا مسائل افغانستان است که وقتی که ما میبینیم که در اروپا حقوق مساوی وجود نداره، درست است، ولی متفاوت‌تر از افغانستان است. در افغانستان وقتی که ما از حقوق مساوی صحبت میکنیم، از برابری صحبت میکنیم، ما میخواهیم که حقوق ابتدایی خود در اونجا داشته باشیم، زنای ما در اونجا حقوق ابتدایی داشته باشه. ولی من بسیار خوشحال هستم که زنای اروپا هم با صدای بلند اینا داد میزنن یا دادخواهی میکنن که ما بیشتر میخواهیم، ما حق طلاق میخواهیم، ما حق اطفال میخواهیم، ما حقوق مساوی، حقوق کار مساوی میخواهیم. اما در افغانستان ما میخواهیم خشونت نشه همراه ما میخواهیم گوش بینی ما بریده نشه، ما میخواهیم که سنگسار نشیم، ما میخواهیم که حکومت طالبانی در افغانستان نبیاید، طالبانی که به زنستیزای قرن نشور هستند. ما میخواهیم سیاست افغانستان، زنای افغانستان در سیاست حال و آینده افغانستان جایگاه و نقش خود داشته باشند. ما میخواهیم با حفظ تمام حقوقی که 18 سال یا بیشتر از او در 100 سالی که ما داشتیم یا تا اندازه‌ای که داشتیم ولی بیشتر در 18 سال این حقوق ما حفظ شود با همین قوانین اساسی که تجدید نظر نشه در مورد زنان، اگر شود به شکل حقوق بهتر شود. ما این آرزو را داریم. ولی من تشکر میکنم از دوستایی که سوالایی که بسان باشه من مطرح میکنم. فقط من میخواستم ایره بر از اونا برسانیم و اینا چی مایت کرده میتونن ما را در داخل افغانستان زنا را به خصوص.
از دکتر شبم خواهش میکنیم که همین صحبت ها را به انگلیسی بگوین. بله برای که به گوش از اینا برسه که ما زنای افغانستان چی میخواهیم.
تشکر میکنم. In English or German? Should I ask in English or German, please?
German better. Better in German.
Better for me even. Danke für die Einladung. Ich habe zugehört und ich habe versucht, ein bisschen was zu verstehen über Frauen, Frauen im Frieden, Frauen im Krieg in Afghanistan. Und während ich davon interessiert zugehört habe, habe ich eine Idee bekommen. Und mich würde interessieren, besonders an die Vertreterinnen der afghanischen Community, wie sinnvoll meine Idee wäre. Meine Idee oder meine Frage ist, wie ist es möglich, dass die afghanische Diaspora in Europa, in Amerika, die Frauenrechte und den Friedensprozess in Afghanistan unterstützt? Ich denke, dass viele afghanische Familien hier erleben, was Frauenrechte sind, welche Möglichkeiten Frauen hier in Europa haben und wie Frauenrechte auch gut für die Männer sind. Und meine Idee wäre, wie können wir es schaffen, dass die Diaspora, die afghanischen Familien in Europa und Amerika, die afghanischen Familien in den Dörfern, in den Städten in Afghanistan unterstützen, indem sie sagen, ja, meine Tochter kann in die Schule gehen, sie darf eine Ausbildung machen, sie muss kein Kopftuch tragen, sie darf arbeiten und es ist auch kein Problem, wenn meine Frau hier arbeiten geht. Einfach ein positives Vorbild zu sein, das fände ich eine tolle Idee, aber ich weiß nicht, inwieweit das möglich ist und inwieweit es nachhaltig ist. Dankeschön.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I'll just roughly translate what Zarghuna Jan Wali said. Actually, she made a very valid critique that why this is only in English, why it's not translated into Dari and Pashto. So we take the critique, and Mr. Amir is there, so we work to make it better next time. Thank you for your as Asiye was talking about the rights of women and the equality between men and women, and of course the women in Europe actually they're fighting for equal rights. But in Afghanistan, actually, we are asking for basic human rights. You know, we don't want any violence to be committed against women. We don't want to be stoned to death, and we want Afghan women to be engaged in Afghan politics and in the future of Afghanistan. That is the most important thing for Afghan women. Of course, what you said is also important, but these are the stuff that we want, and we want to preserve our rights that we have achieved in the last 18-20 years. We don't want to lose them. So what the European countries, what EU, if I'm right, European countries could do to help the Afghan women? That was the question. So who will want to take the questions?
Yes. Ich gebe Ihnen natürlich recht, aber ich bin jetzt keine, ich sage jetzt, Expertin, was die afghanischen Frauen in Afghanistan betrifft. Ich bin Soziologin und habe deshalb den Fokus auf eben die Migration und Integration gelegt, nämlich die Frauen, die jetzt nach Österreich migriert sind. Und da ist es ganz, ganz wichtig, und da sollte die EU rechtzeitig, alle EU-Länder rechtzeitig raufschauen, und auch selbstverständlich Österreich, im Regierungsprogramm beispielsweise wird ja die Arbeitsmarktunterstützung von Frauen zumindest genannt. Ja? Also was besonders wichtig wäre, ist eben hier zu schauen, dass wenn die Frauen in Österreich leben, dass sie unabhängig von ihren, sage ich jetzt, Familienangehörigen leben können, so ein eigenständiges Einkommen haben. Ganz, ganz wichtig eben die Bildung, jede Form von Qualifizierung, und das gilt natürlich generell. Wir müssen einfach mit gezielten Projekten die Frauen und Qualifizierungsmaßnahmen und Deutschkursen Frauen gezielt unterstützen, dass sie eben auch eine gute Arbeit finden, eine Arbeit, von der sie auch leben können. Also so, aber selbstverständlich, mir ist das sehr, sehr bewusst, wie es in Afghanistan ist. Und selbstverständlich ist mir auch klar, dass aber eben, wenn ich habe jetzt die Migration seit 2014 hergenommen. Deshalb, aber ja, ich hoffe, ich konnte beantworten.
Thank you. Any reaction or comment to the comments were made? Anyone? If not, then I will, Dr. Sebmonesa.
Hierher an Diskussion als Zuschauer auch teilnehmen zu können. Ich würde gerne die Antwort auf die Dame, die bezüglich der afghanischen Diaspora-Frauen gesagt, ob sie mit ihrer Bildung und Unterstützung hinter die afghanischen Frauen zu Hause Hilfe leisten können, wenn ich richtig verstanden habe. Es ist so, es ist wünschenswert, gnädige Dame, aber was die miserable Situation zurzeit in Afghanistan abgespielt wird. Die Hungernot kann man nicht mehr sagen. Und die Unterdrückung und Diskrimination der Frauen, es gibt's nicht mehr darunter. Und die Arbeitslosigkeit, die Arbeitsmarkt und durch diese Covid-19, alles sind zusammengebrochen. der beste Lehrer, der zu Hause gesessen haben muss, aufgrund dieser Gruppierung an Risikopersonen, die zu Hause sind, sie bekommen keine völlige Gehalt. Sei es ein Lehrer hat weniger als $100 Lohn zu Hause und sie hat 7 Kinder zu ernähren und wohnt in Mietwohnungen. Stellen Sie sich vor. Und zum anderen auch dieser Vorahnung oder die Vorurteile, die gegenüber die afghanischen Frauen in Diaspora dort aufgrund dieser religiösen, kulturellen Situation gegenüber denen sind, erlauben sie nicht die Frauen, die in Diaspora leben, als gebildete Frauen an die, diese Bewegung der Frauen irgendeine Schritte zu machen. Ich als, westlicher Verrückter immerhin wird beschimpft. Das ist die Meinung, die dort vertreten wird und sogar mitten der Frauen. Weil wenn wir von afghanischen Frauen sprechen, sprechen nicht von Ballenzentrum, Kabul, Mazar, Herat und der anderen. Ich spreche von afghanischen Frauen in Naushad von Badakhshan. Ich spreche von der Frauen, die Meinung der Frauen von Helmand, von Badghis, von ganz Distrikt von Ghazni. Wissen Sie, wenn ich dort mit diesem Kleid und ihr gegenüber auftrete, sie würde mir sagen, du bist gottlos. Das sind die Unterdrückungen. Was man hätte machen können mit der Networkung der Frauen, die im Ausland leben und auch die Frauen, die in Afghanistan leben und mit Unterstützung der internationalen Community, die in Afghanistan präsent sind, erstmal an die Bildung der Frauen investieren. Wer 4 Kinder hat, zuerst versucht 2 ihr Sohn zur Schule zu schicken. Die sagt, die Tochter braucht nicht zur Schule zu gehen, die wird sowieso geheiratet. Es gehört im Anführungszeichen der Fremde. Die Frauen in Afghanistan brauchen eure Unterstützung. Wo im Moment wiederum dieses Game um die Frauen vor den Friedensprozess abgespielt wird. Es ist absurd. So, zum anderen, ich habe von der Dame von IOM gehört. Es ist wirklich toll, aber wissen Sie, im Moment die Kosten, die Preise in Afghanistan bezüglich des Lebensmittels und auch die Wohnung und die anderen sind enorm hoch, als man könnte mit den Preiserhöhungen im Westen vergleichen können. 3.800, 2.800 Euro, wenn Sie ein Retournee anbieten können. Wissen Sie, ich sage Ihnen etwas anderes.
Thank you, Dr.
Die Taliban sind dort und nehmen die Hälfte zurück. Versuchen Sie, afghanische Frauen zu unterstützen. Versuchen Sie bitte als internationaler Repräsentant die Delegation in Doha unter Druck zu setzen, dass sie diese Rotlinie bezüglich der Rechte der Frauen berücksichtigen und müssen akzeptieren. Dankeschön.
Thank you for your powerful, very powerful statement. We have the very last question from Mr. Bakri. So we have a comment or a question from a man.
Herzlichen Dank. Ich würde eine Frage stellen von Frau Zeller, Arbeiterkammer. Und ja, Sie sind zuständig von Integration und Migranten. Ich werde fragen, und bevor frage ich werde ein bisschen kurz erzählen. Ich bin tätig zwischen afghanischer Freie und afghanischer Gesellschaft. Ich habe schon gehört von unserer Gäste, dass wir haben glücklicherweise viele gebildete Frauen. Das stimmt. Aber was ist das? Wir konnten das die afghanische Frau hier in Gesellschaft in Europa oder in Österreich in zwei Teilkategorien. Erste Kategorie gebildete Frau und zweite ungebildete Frau. Erste meine Frage ist es, welche Unterschutz gibt es von Frauen, wenn die Frauen werden dann selbstständig werden? Und dann zwar, welche Unterschutz gibt es von gebildeten Frauen, wenn sie zum Arbeitsmarkt gehen? Diese zwei Fragen, wieso ich habe das gefragt? Weil als in
Bakri said we have 3 minutes.
Okay,
so
das
let her
ja.
answer your questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
We have 3 minutes.
Ja, das nur am Ende, ich werde sagen, welche Unterschutz gibt von der Frau ungebildete Frau und gebildete Frau? Weil lange Zeit, wir sehen hier, die Frauen sind oft, leider, das ist arbeitslos, weil gibt es keine oder wenige Motivation zur Arbeitsmarkt zu gehen. Das ist meine Frage.
Thank you.
Dankeschön.
A very important question. So we have, ja, bitte.
Ich versuche, Ihre 2 Fragen kurz zu halten. Es gibt selbstverständlich schon ein großes Angebot, vor allem vom Arbeitsmarktservice in Wien, aber auch in allen anderen Bundesländern, gezielt auch für afghanische Frauen. Ja? Aber auch gezielt für Frauen, die zugewandert sind. Also ich kenne die Landschaft ein bisschen. Ich kann anfangen beispielsweise mit den Kompetenzenchecks, ja, wo Frauen auch so eine Grundbasis bekommen, wirklich von eben lateinische Schrift angefangen, Mathematik und vieles mehr. Und dann geht es weiter mit den Deutschkursen und so weiter. Und wenn ein bestimmtes Level erreicht wurde, also Sie wissen A1, A2, B1 und so weiter, so geht es weiter, dann gibt es eben die Möglichkeit von anderen Qualifizierungskursen und auch Maßnahmen. Diese ganzen Kurse, die es gibt, ja, also man hat keinen Rechtsanspruch auf solche Kurse, aber man kann mit seiner Beraterin oder seinem Berater reden und normalerweise bekommt man schon eine Zuweisung, weil oft, ich habe die Erfahrung gemacht, dass die AMS-Beraterinnen oft selber auch nicht wissen, was sie sonst machen sollen. Also gerne schicken sie die Frauen in Kurse. Aber wo ich schon eine Lücke sehe, leider ist es so, dass es oft zwischen diesen Kursen, diesen Angeboten auf Lücken gibt. Manchmal 2, 3, 6 Monate und so weiter. Und das ist sehr, sehr schade, weil dann die Frauen oft diese Deutschkenntnisse und was sie auch dort erlernt haben, oft auch wieder vergessen. Ich glaube, wichtig ist es, dann noch einmal hinzuschauen, dass die Frauen eben durchgehend diese Kurse bekommen und dann in den Arbeitsmarkt schnell reinkommen, weil nur wenn man die Sprache anwendet, kann man sie auch gut merken. Aber es gibt schon, wir haben die Schwierigkeit gesehen, ich meine, sie sind natürlich wirklich gebildete Frauen, aber wie Sie sagen, Frauen, die noch nicht Deutsch können oder noch nicht so eine gute Ausbildung haben, die kennen sich mit der Landschaft nicht aus, mit der Bildungslandschaft und kommen schwer zu Informationen. Und deshalb ist es auch wichtig, dass die Vereine, die übernehmen oft auch diese Aufgabe, aber dass die Frauen zu diesen Informationen kommen. Also sowohl zu den Kursen, wie auch es gibt eine große Anzahl an finanzieller Förderungsmöglichkeiten. So kurz einmal gesagt.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, Bakri, we can talk later, but Ms. Nazimi has a final word. Please.
Ja, ich wollte auch noch mal kurz auf Ihren Punkt eingehen. Und zwar haben Sie gefragt nach Ihrer Idee und wie man diese Idee umsetzen könnte. Ich glaube, ein Anfang wäre es erst einmal nicht die Ideen aus dem Westen oder die weißen Ideen zu versuchen, auf uns Afghaninnen oder Musliminnen umzumünzen, weil zum Beispiel ein Kopftuch zu tragen bedeutet nicht, dass man ungebildet ist oder nicht in den Arbeitsmarkt drängen kann. Das liegt an dem Rassismus in ihren Gesellschaften in Europa, dass Frauen auch mit Kopftuch keine Richterin werden können oder in hohen Berufen nicht mal eingeladen werden zu Bewerbungsgesprächen. Also ich glaube, wenn Sie überlegen wollen, was man tun kann, dann können Sie erstmal bei sich ansetzen, was können wir als weiße Mehrheitsgesellschaft eigentlich tun, um Menschen wie Frauen aus Afghanistan das Leben zu erleichtern. Warum akzeptieren wir nicht deren Universitätsabschlüsse? Es gibt sehr viele Frauen, die hier leben und deren Universitätsabschlüsse werden nicht akzeptiert. Die haben studiert, die haben alles gemacht. Ich finde es besser, wenn die weiße Mehrheitsgesellschaft erstmal da anfängt, als bei uns zu erklären, dass man Kopftuch ablegen sollte, um emanzipiert zu sein. Und dann wollte ich auch noch mal sagen, dass in Afghanistan gibt es nicht nur keine Frauenrechte, sondern es gibt auch keine Rechte für Männer. Also auch Männer sind in Afghanistan unterdrückt. Und das ist ein Kreislauf und eine Teufelsspirale, das eine erübrigt das andere. Ein Mann, der gezwungen wird zu heiraten, und das passiert sehr oft in Afghanistan, nicht nur Frauen werden gezwungen zu heiraten, sondern auch Männer, der wird natürlich nicht seine Frau gut behandeln, weil er gezwungen wurde zu dieser Hochzeit. Hinzu kommt, dass die Gewalt und der Krieg, und diese Gewalt und dieser Krieg, die kommen nicht von uns. Diese Gewalt und dieser Krieg werden aus dem Ausland finanziert. Die bringen ja erst eine Gesellschaft dazu, so kaputt zu sein. Ich habe vorhin gesagt, in Afghanistan haben Frauen gewählt, da haben die Frauen in der Schweiz noch nicht gewählt. Also wie kann das überhaupt passieren, dass eine Gesellschaft von diesem Stand so runtergeht in einen mittelalterlichen Zustand, wenn die Afghanen selber gar nichts dafür können? Also wenn Sie als weiße Mehrheitsgesellschaft danach fragen, dann ist es immer gut, glaube ich, auch erstmal bei sich anzufangen.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Frau Herz, Ms. Olumi, Ms. Nazimi, Musleh, and Sel. Thank you very much. I think 1.5 hours is never enough for a discussion and for having such wonderful speakers here. I want to end the conversation here, but Mr. Mir wants to say something to you all. And be healthy, stay safe, and I hope we have a free world corona soon.